On the 14th of August, 1945, the Japanese resolve was finally broken. Pens were put to paper, and the end of World War II was finally brought about. However, in the wake of this war, over 70 million people lay dead. For context, 70 million surpasses the combined population of the Netherlands, Romania, Belgium, Sweden, Czech Republic, and Portugal. Today, various books have been written inquiring into and giving an explainer as to why this war took place to begin with. However, many of them miss out on a perspective that I'm about to introduce to you today, which is, what if Adolf Hitler was born dumb or was scared of stages? What if I told you that those two things could have prevented the war from happening? In case you still doubt, or in case you are in doubt of the fact that Adolf Hitler being dumb or being afraid of stages could have prevented this war from happening, ask yourself, how did Adolf Hitler convince millions of Germans to contribute their resources and lay down their lives to the cause of the Nazi Germany that he taught about, if not through speech? Ladies and gentlemen, against the background of this introduction, let me introduce you to the topic that we have today, which is the life-changing power of public speaking and communications and how to make it work for you. Many times in today's world, when we talk about the importance of public speaking, we often think of it in a way far less compared to what history has shown us. We think about it as something that is important, but not something that is necessary to have. Sometimes we think of it as something that might prove good for us, but not something that could be life-changing. But reality and history has shown us that nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, we have seen that words indeed hold a lot of weight, and that those who know how to wield them hold immense power. In case you do not believe that, permit me to share a personal experience with you. In my final year as a law student in Obafemi Awolowo University, I formed a team of 4 people: myself, 2 brilliant accounting students, 1 economics student, to go for a finance-based competition organized by an international accounting and finance body. We got to the grand finale of the competition, and at the grand finale of the competition, we blew their minds. The presentation was stellar, and we won the competition. However, a few days after the competition, a person reached out to me from the organizers of the competition. It turns out that one of the judges at the competition was the GMD of one of Nigeria's foremost real estate company, and he was reaching out to me to offer me a job opportunity at the real estate firm. However, here was the plot twist. The role I was being offered was for the job of an accountant. And of course, as a law student with a separate career path, I could not take up the offer. But ask yourself, what could make a law student get a competitive accounting job without even having to turn in a CV or resume to begin with? That, ladies and gentlemen, introduces us to the power of public speaking. But if you still think my story is too difficult to believe, and if you think maybe that I am overrating public speaking before you today, ask yourself a couple of questions. Why are dictators scared of activists who do nothing but speak up? Why do holy books and wise men warn us to be careful of who and what we listen to? When you solve these simultaneous equations of rhetorical questions, you end up with one answer: that your voice is what your soul and your life. But a lot of you do not realize that because you have failed to give it that value. Going forward, and having shown you the importance of public speaking, I'll be showing you how you can harness this in 5 simple steps. The first step is you overcoming your fear. And what do we mean by overcoming your fear? We mean that you must ensure that you break through the fear obstacle. Because in my interaction with hundreds of youths and people who I have seen potential in, one factor stands that is common to many of them, and it is the belief that they cannot be good public speakers because they are introverts or because they are scared of people. And when you think about it, it seems to make sense. It seems to be logical. If you're an introvert, you would definitely be a bad public speaker. But what if I told you that majority of the great public speakers I have met, and I have met quite a lot of them, are introverts? And before you question that, ask yourself, what exactly is the definition of an introvert? Look at the slide. It says, a person who is predominantly focused on internal thoughts and feelings rather than on external things or social interactions. And they are often characterized as what? Quiet or withdrawn. When you pay close attention to this definition, we see a few traits that would make the average introvert a better speaker than the average extrovert. Why? Because they are able to consider their thoughts properly, they're able to sit down to think, and they're able to structure their thoughts in a way that makes what they talk about more structured and more complete or well thought of before it comes out of their mouth. That being said, another angle to the fear factor that is often misinterpreted, or that is a common misconception I have seen in the public speaking space, is that people assume that the feeling of fear that you feel before you come up the stage is a warning for you not to take up the stage, or a warning that you should take in order to avoid a disaster. But this could not be further from the truth, because with our simple knowledge of biology, we must ask yourself, how do you even know that what you are feeling is actual fear? Note that I keep on using scare quotes, because if I asked you, how do you know what you are feeling is fear? You tell yourself that what you are feeling is fear because you probably have sweaty nose, or maybe your hands are shaking, or you have sweaty palms, or your heart is racing. But biology tells us that all of this is simply adrenaline. And what exactly is adrenaline? Adrenaline is your body preparing you for what it thinks is a pivotal or big moment. So, the way you react to it will determine what will happen. If you take it as a sign of fear, then you are definitely going to fumble on the stage. But if you take it as what it exactly it is, then you will find out that it could be an advantage that would help you in going forward. Moving on to the second step that would help you become a better public speaker, which is start with small moments. Upon conquering your fears, the next step is for you to actually look for a stage where you speak. But the issue is, a stage doesn't just manifest because you have finally conquered your fear of public speaking. And many a times we think that for us to get that stage, it is only if we go for maybe a debate competition or if we get invited to speak at a conference. But nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, it is important for us to start with small stages and small moments, because if we fail to do that, two things are very likely to happen. First, we could have a problem of either fumbling on the big stage, or we would not even have the opportunity to be on the big stage because we have failed to embrace the small stages or the small moments. So what do we do to solve this problem? You start by embracing small stages, small moments, or even creating them for yourself. And what does this look like? This simply looks like asking very intelligent questions at a conference where there are several people in attendance, bringing sanity to the free-for-all arguments you engage in with your friend when you are the only one speaking and all eyes are on you. It's a form of public speaking. And also joining clubs or societies that help you build your knowledge or base on public speaking. During my stint as the vice chairperson of the Ife Law Debate Committee, we leveraged this idea a lot. Oftentimes, before taking people to the big stages, we started with tryouts where there were few people in attendance. And those who distinguished themselves at the tryout stage would advance to interfaculty or interdepartmental debate competitions. And when they had conquered or done well at 2 or 3 of those kind of competitions, we take them to the national stage and so on and so forth. And the record speaks for itself. At every point in time, or almost every point in time, we have consistently recorded podium finishes, taking first, second, third, almost every time. And this in itself speaks to the power of embracing small stages before the big stage. Moving to the third standpoint, which is embrace structure. Many times, when we speak, particularly in informal settings, myself inclusive, we often tend to try to make all our points at the same time. And this often ends up making us sound like a rambler because we do not collect our thoughts before speaking. And this creates a big challenge for members of the audience or people who are listening to us. They cannot exactly get to the point we are driving at because we have sent a jumbled up message to their brain, which they do not want to carry out the extra task of unjumbling in order to get the core message. Therefore, in order for us to be better speakers, there is a need for us to embrace structure in our approach to speaking, even within our day-to-day context, in our day-to-day arguments with our friends, in our day-to-day discussions with family members. And this will do two things for your communication. First, it would ensure that your thought process is more streamlined and collected. And second of all, it would make it easier for your audience to understand what you are saying. And to the second to the last, we have to speak with more than your mouth. You have often heard the phrase, action speaks louder than words. And the truth is, communication is more in the body than in the mouth. Which means that if you intend to really say it like you mean it, then you must speak with more than your mouth. You must ensure that your gesticulations and your body language is in alignment with what you are saying. And however, taking this advice, there are two very, very important things to note. And the first thing to note is that when speaking, ensure that your body language is in alignment with whatsoever you are saying. And second of all, ensure that your body language does not compete with what you are saying for your audience's attention. Because when you do it this way, then you can be ensured that you are getting maximum results. Moving on to the final one, which is know your audience and your audience. There is nothing as exciting as really knowing what you want to talk about. And the reason behind this is simple. When you really know what you want to talk about, you'll be amazed that there are times when the fear that you often think you feel before speaking will be replaced with excitement. Why? Because you now feel like you want to provide value and because you are eager to let the audience hear what you have to say to them. So when you really know what you want to talk about, you see that the feeling of fear would often die down. But aside from knowing what you want to talk about and being very sure about it, there is also the place of understanding your audience very well. What do I mean by understanding your audience very well? A good public speaker will know that there is a difference between how a doctor would approach speaking to a group of doctors at a medical conference on a particular topic and how the doctor would approach teaching the same thing to a group of laymen like us who know nothing about the medical field. You will find out that he would utilize less jargons compared to when he would be amongst his colleagues. In the same vein, in knowing what you are talking about, I'm pretty sure that if I brought up an art student here to talk about something like, say, calculus, or teach people about calculus, if he would not feel fear on a normal day, at that moment, he is very likely to be engulfed in fear. However, if I brought up any one of you to come and teach us ABCD, I'm very sure a large number of us will embrace that with open hands. What is the difference between both scenarios? Simple. In one scenario, you know very well what you want to talk about. In another scenario, you do not exactly know what you want to talk about. And speaking about knowing your audience, as I have said, understanding your audience goes beyond the academic standing. It also goes into the socio-cultural context of the audience you are speaking to. In short, what could get you applause and admiration from one audience could end up doing what? Could end up causing boos from another audience. An example I would like to use is, if you're a Christian, you would have often heard your pastor or seen somewhere somebody say, the Egyptians you know today, you shall see them no more, right? Referencing the crossing over of the Red Sea in Exodus by the children of Israel. But a lot of times I often think, when these pastors go do crusades in a country like Egypt, would they make that same statement? Well, I doubt that very strongly. Why? Because there is a sentiment tied. Is it biblical by Christian standards? It is. Would that excite the average Nigerian? It would. But would that excite the average Egyptian? Well, I think not. And this is why context is very key. even in communication. Well, we'll round up with the words of Emily Sandy, which summarizes almost everything we have said here today very aptly. In her song, Read All About It. It says, "You've got the words to change a nation, but you are biting your tongue. You've spent a lifetime stuck in silence, afraid you say something wrong. But if no one's gonna hear it, then how are we going to learn your song?" As somebody who has moved audience into applause, made them rethink their standpoints, and walked into rooms that I would ordinarily not have been by virtue of my social standing, and made people find favor just because of the fact that they heard me speak, I would leave you with a final question. And the question is simple: will you let your voice drown in your head, or would you lend it as an instrument for change? Thank you very much.